You young men have this war to win. It is small unit leadership that is going to win the ground battle.
August 4th, 1944. Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, Versailles, France. General Dwight D. Eisenhower stands over a map table, coffee in hand, scanning the latest position reports. Colored markers crawl slowly across northern France, exactly where he expects them to be. Then he stops. He leans closer. Something is wrong. An intelligence officer steps forward. "Sir, this report just came in from the Third Army." Eisenhower studies the map again. The marker isn't just out of place, it's impossible. Too far east, too far south, too fast. A British officer breaks the silence. "These positions can't be correct. Third Army couldn't possibly be that far forward already." The intelligence officer doesn't flinch. "We've confirmed it 3 times, sir." Eisenhower sets his coffee down slowly. According to this map, one American army, George S. Patton's Third Army, has advanced over 100 miles in 4 days, through enemy territory with limited fuel against a German force that was supposed to be regrouping. No army is supposed to move that fast. Not in theory, not in doctrine, not in reality. Eisenhower stares at the map for a long time. Then he says 5 quiet words, words that will come to define an entire military career. Good God, he's already there. To understand why that map looked impossible, you have to go back 2 months. June 1944. The Allies land in Normandy. D-Day succeeds, but the war doesn't suddenly become easy. Instead of open countryside, Allied troops run straight into Norman hedgerows. Thick earthen walls, narrow lanes, perfect defensive terrain. Every field becomes a fortress. By July, the front has barely moved. Casualties climb, tanks are knocked out at point-blank range. Infantry clears the same grounds again and again, only to be stopped by the next hedgerow 50 yards away. German units, outnumbered and under constant pressure, still fight with discipline and skill. At Schaeff, the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, frustration grows. This wasn't the plan. The invasion was supposed to break Germany's grip on Western Europe. Instead, the Allies are stuck in a grinding battle of attrition. Eisenhower and his commanders know that if this continues, the war in France could drag on for months. What they need isn't another slow push. They need a rupture. In late July, they gamble everything on Operation Cobra. Thousands of Allied bombers hammer a narrow section of the German line. The goal is simple and desperate. Blow a hole so large that German defenses collapse faster than they can be rebuilt. But even Cobra is planned with caution. The expectation isn't a race across France. It's a controlled breakthrough. Consolidate, secure the flanks, let the supply lines catch up, then advance again, methodically. No one is planning for speed to become the weapon, and no one, at this point, is planning for George Patton. The breakthrough comes at the end of July. Operation Cobra works. The bombing tears a gap in the German line, and for the first time since D-Day, American forces spill into open country. The bottleneck is finally broken, and that's when George Patton enters the war. On August 1st, 1944, the U.S. Third Army is officially activated. Patton's Army. Its role is simple on paper. Move through the gap created by First Army and exploit the breakthrough. Exploit doesn't mean sprint, at least not according to doctrine. Before Third Army even moves, Patton sends a message to Eisenhower. His plan isn't cautious, it isn't conditional. He intends to drive south into Brittany, secure the peninsula in 4 days, then pivot east toward Paris, advancing as far as fuel allows. Eisenhower reads it twice. 100 miles in 4 days, through contested territory, with supply lines that barely exist. When Eisenhower finally gets him on the phone, Patton is blunt. The Germans, he says, are disorganized. Their command structure is cracking. If Third Army moves immediately, without stopping, they can outrun German reactions entirely. If we wait for perfect logistics, Patton warns, we lose the moment. Every rule of modern warfare says he's wrong. You don't outrun your supply lines. You consolidate, secure, then move again. But Patton has never been interested in rules. Eisenhower hesitates, then gives a conditional approval. Advance, but if you get stuck without fuel, you own it. And that's all Patton needs. He turns to his division commanders and issues orders that stun even his own officers. Keep moving. Don't stop for resistance. Go around it. If you run out of fuel, take it from the enemy. Speed is no longer a byproduct of the advance. Speed is the plan. Third Army surges forward immediately. Entire divisions roll day and night, bypassing pockets of resistance and leaving confusion in their wake. Tank crews are exhausted. Supply officers panic. Maps become outdated within hours. But it works. The Germans don't react because they can't. By the time they identify where Third Army is, Patton is already somewhere else. And within days, the question isn't how far can Patton go? It's far more unsettling. Where is Patton right now? Avranches falls almost immediately. German units are still trying to form a defensive line when Third Army tanks arrive. There's no prolonged fight, no pause. Within hours, the gateway to Brittany is open. And Patton doesn't slow down. Armored columns fan out, racing west and south. Infantry divisions follow as fast as they can march. Resistance exists, but it's fragmented. Units cut off, bypassed, left behind. At German headquarters, confusion sets in. Reports arrive that contradict each other. American armor here, no. Further south, no. Already past that position. Staff officers argue over maps that are already obsolete. By the time German commanders identify where Patton's main force is, it no longer matters. Third Army has already slipped past their planned defenses. The questions spread through German staff offices, urgent and unsettling. Where is Patton? It's a question without a stable answer because Patton refuses to stay put. Each day, Third Army advances farther than the day before. 20 miles, 30, then more. The Germans aren't being defeated in set battles, they're being outpaced. Speed becomes a weapon. An army that can't be found can't be stopped. And as both sides stare at maps that no longer make sense, one truth becomes unavoidable. Patton isn't just exploiting the breakthrough, he's breaking the enemy's ability to respond at all. By August 3rd, the weakness everyone warned about finally appears. Fuel. Third Army has advanced so far, so fast, that its supply system is stretched to the breaking point. The trucks can't keep up. At current consumption rates, Patton's armored units have less than 2 days of fuel remaining. Under normal circumstances, this is where an advance stops. Instead, Patton issues new orders. Fuel is stripped from non-essential vehicles. Captured German trucks are pressed into service. Gasoline is siphoned from wrecked vehicles and abandoned depots. Anything that doesn't move the fight forward is left behind. It's logistics by improvisation. Exactly the kind of system military doctrine warns against. And yet, it works. Not because it's efficient, but because the Germans are still reeling. Their command structure is fractured. Their defensive lines are only half formed. Every hour they spend trying to understand where Third Army is becomes another hour Patton steals from them. At Schaeff, Eisenhower watches the situation with growing concern. By every rule of warfare, this is the moment Patton should be ordered to halt, consolidate, and wait for supplies. But stopping now would give the Germans something they haven't had since Cobra broke their lines. Time. Eisenhower makes a critical decision. Fuel shipments are redirected. Third Army is given priority, not because it's safe, but because it's winning. The advance continues. By the second week of August, most of Brittany is effectively in American hands. At this point, the safe move is obvious. Secure the ports, pause, rebuild the supply network, prepare for the next phase. Patton does the opposite. Instead of driving west to finish clearing the peninsula, Third Army turns east. The maneuver is extraordinary in its scale. An entire field army, hundreds of thousands of men, thousands of vehicles, changes direction while still advancing. Roads clog, supply routes realign on the move. By every conventional measure, it should collapse into confusion. But it doesn't. The pivot catches the Germans completely off guard. They're still preparing to defend Brittany when Patton's armor appears where it isn't supposed to be, driving toward Paris, toward the Seine, toward the heart of France. German commanders finally understand what's happening. This is no longer a series of breakthroughs, it's a pursuit. And in a pursuit, the side that hesitates loses. Within days, Third Army reaches the Seine. weeks ahead of Allied projections. At Schaeff, Eisenhower studies the reports in disbelief. The original timetable had Third Army reaching the Seine in mid-September. It's mid-August. Patton is not just ahead of schedule, he's rewriting it. The implications are staggering. Every mile gained now is a mile the Germans don't have time to defend. Every day saved is a day the war is shortened. But the risks are growing just as fast. Third Army is far ahead of neighboring units. Flanks are exposed. Supply lines are stretched beyond sustainability. One concentrated German counterattack could cut Patton off completely. Eisenhower faces a dilemma with no clean answer. Order Patton to stop and risk giving the Germans time to recover, or let him continue and risk losing an entire army. For now, Eisenhower chooses momentum, and Third Army keeps moving. By late August, Third Army finally stops, not because the Germans stop it, but because fuel does. Armored columns grind to a halt within sight of their next objectives. Engines fall silent. For the first time since Cobra, speed is no longer an option. The pause is devastating. German forces, given the time Patton feared, begin rebuilding defensive lines further east. What had been a rout hardens back into resistance. The window closes. Patton is furious, convinced the war could have ended in 1944 if Third Army had been given priority. Eisenhower, balancing the entire Allied front, chooses otherwise. The decision will be debated for decades. But the argument misses something essential. In a single month, Patton's Third Army has crossed France, advanced hundreds of miles, captured tens of thousands of prisoners, and shattered German command cohesion in the West. Allied casualties are lower than expected, not because the fighting was easy, but because speed denied the enemy the chance to respond. After the war, German commanders admit the truth. They could prepare defenses against predictable timetables, but Patton broke that rhythm. By the time they understood where he was already somewhere else. Historians later described the August advance as one of the fastest sustained offensives in modern warfare, and it all traces back to one moment at Schaeff, officers staring at a map that made no sense. Eisenhower had seen bold plans before. He had seen successful generals. What he hadn't seen was an army move so fast that even its own commanders struggled to believe it. That's why he didn't shout. He didn't boast. He simply looked down at the map and said, "Good God, he's already there." Not disbelief, recognition. In war, speed isn't just an advantage. Sometimes it's everything.